Hello and welcome to DMA Decision Makers Part 2 with Leonardo O'Grady, the ASEAN Integrated Marketing and Communications Director for the Coca-Cola Company. Leonardo, thanks once again for joining us. Last time we spoke about content, where it comes from, how you motivate your community to create content for you. Now I want to talk about how you host and distribute that content. The corporate website, quite famously, recently became more of a media portal. What was the thinking behind that? How did that happen?
Yeah, it is. It's exciting. I think there were a couple of factors influencing that. One was about who we were talking to. I think that was one part. The second thing is just kind of the growth of social media. And you know, in terms of who we're talking to, the part of the realization again that we had was that we're no longer talking to a consumer, and we're no longer talking to you know, an internal stakeholder, and that there's kind of this community of creators and influencers. And actually, we need to be talking to all of them. And we need to be adding value to all of those people. And we've shifted our whole idea of, rather than just talking to a consumer, we're talking to constituents. Now, if you take that logic and you take that thinking and you look at something like a corporate website, typically they're broken out, right? You have one that's for consumers and it's fun and it's playful, and then you have one that might be more for investors, and then you might have one for an NGO or one for someone who wants to challenge. And so we realized that you can't be speaking to these people as a different person, as a different organization, and that actually the brand, it all needs to begin to sit together.
Your corporate website recently underwent a massive shift and is now a media portal. What was the strategic thinking behind that move?
That means that our global website becomes almost like a Paddington Station or a Grand Central Station. You know, it has to be a connector, an access point for people to begin to go to these spaces that we don't control, that we don't have. You know, we're just a voice in, but again, people need to be able to access it, either because they want to engage in the conversations, or there's compelling content on there that's interesting for them, that links to something else we're doing. So there may be a whole set of dialogues, say, for example, on the Olympics, that's linked to some really fun and interesting content that people want or take. And that needs to be able to funnel and channel through this kind of large network. So part of it was then, how do we create that network with all of these kind of entrepreneurial people who are using our brand to do that? And that includes YouTube and so on.
Coca-Cola is one of those few truly enormous brands that when the Olympics or the World Cup rolls around, you kind of expect to see sponsoring. But how do you harness an event like that across digital platforms?
Well, the Olympics is it's an important one for us. It was very important for us, and it's massive. And you know, the power of the Olympics, it's not a kind of a traditional sponsor. We don't approach things that way. We try to partner. And if you look at the Olympics as just an example, what was interesting about that was part of what we try to do is also resolve some of the problems that these organizations are having. So the Olympics was, how do I stay relevant with younger people and so on. So we worked with them to tie it into music, and we said, well, let's bring sport and music because teens love music, and it's a great way to begin to create greater relevancy and a new generation of people who are enthusiastic about the Olympics. And of course it's London, which is one of the music capitals of the world, and Coke has been about music since its first opportunity to broadcast. In doing that, we did a partnership with Mark Ronson, who's published and helped produce people like Amy Winehouse and so on, where he went around to athletes all over the world and he used the sounds that they create when they train to create a mashup mix and so on that was then broadcast. That piece then became kind of the anthem for everything. The challenge we have is we rolled this out across 110 markets, which is massive, right? And the promise we made to the Olympic Committee was to galvanize this community of 110 markets behind the Olympics. And digital or the internet was the platform to do that. Not only was it, it was a way to create the communities to come together and begin to share opinions and so on, not just on the games and not just on countries and on athletes, but we actually invited them to then co-create, create music, and work together and collaborate to create things. And then we took those people and we leveraged that and built that into kind of marketing activities that we were doing in other markets. So again, what the internet does for us is it allows us to kind of leverage our network and operate in a massive kind of scale so that we really have a much bigger impact than any one market could have, because suddenly Coke is giving access to Indonesia to someone in Italy, and creating bonds and relationships within a kind of a music and Olympic platform, which for the Olympic Committee is very exciting because again, it's raising awareness of the Olympics for a market like Indonesia that has no particular interest or real strong history of Olympic involvement. And for us, it's amazing because we're bringing, people together within a Coca-Cola environment and bringing them together across a shared passion of both music and then kind of hopefully the Olympics.
I think a lot of marketers would love to see social and digital put at the heart of what they do, exactly as Coca-Cola has done. But to get to that point, there needs to be a huge shift in the corporate culture. When do you perceive that began within your organization, and how long did it take to spread?
I've seen the progress of it, and actually the example I always give is that it began with the Mentos and Coca-Cola thing. To me, that was the start, in my humble opinion. Now, other people may not think so, but I remember when that occurred, and I remember we were going to take action against them, because a lot of people felt it seems should we be treating the liquid that way? It's kind of cheapening the product. It's not the best way to be represented and so on. And then fortunately, again, someone smart said, you know what? Thank God we're at the center of people's cultural play. The minute we stop doing that, we stop being relevant. So absolutely let these people do that. And if anything, help them have as much of that as possible. It was a wake-up call for us because by the time we had made the decision to kind of embrace them, it had already had millions of views and it was already passed around to a lot of people. So I guess the recognition on that was things are changing. They've already changed. It's going to change with or without us. People are creating content using Coke as a kind of a part of it, as a medium, if we don't get on board now, we're just going to be catching up. So we need to get on it.
As emerging markets come online, do you think we're going to see significant shifts in the way budgets are allocated between offline and online?
I do think yes. I think it is going to shift, and I think particularly, again, the interesting thing, and it goes back to what I was saying before, is we kept getting figures, particularly from digital agencies, saying, oh, there's penetration of X% of smartphones and so on. But then when you actually did the analysis, you realized that the usage was very basic. It was SMS-based and so on. Now that that's changing, absolutely. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a shift to more internet-based type broadcasting platforms, whether it's a YouTube or a Dailymotion or some other type of platform, or even people's blogs, right? Like if you go to some of these markets, like in the Philippines, for example, one of the bigger bloggers broadcasts all the time. Some of it's pirated, some of it's consumer-generated content, some of it's stuff that he pulls off that he's interested. But the following on that, on his programming, is enormous. And brands like us see big value in that, big value in partnering with people like that, big value in providing content to them. And it doesn't have to, And the content, again, needs to have a certain level of integrity and authenticity. For us to engineer and design and do your conventional kind of TVC sort of content won't last there. It will fall off the grid. So absolutely, I think that that's going to be a big, big shift for us.